Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pat O.
Pat O. How about your weekend?
Well, in this part of the country, it was Easter. So, celebrated an innocent man being crucified by an irrational mob for shit that he said,
Yeah,
as one does this time of year. And, hiding eggs.
hiding eggs.
looking, looking for lost eggs and coming across some here and there. And no, it was all right. My family was out of town. They had Easter break and they decided to travel abroad. And can you hear that dog in the background?
Yeah, I can.
That is my three-legged dog. He's hold on a second.
He's telling everybody about his Easter.
Yeah, no, they left him outside, and he is an awesome puppy, but he's very protective, and he likes to bark at everybody as they walk by. Anyway, so yeah, I just kind of like chilled out at home this weekend. I got some stuff I'm working on. I'm doing a game at Gamehole, and in October, so I'm prepping for that. And then Saturday I went out and had a few pops, which was good. It was good to be social and see
Yeah.
people and be seen. Sunday didn't do shit. My mom just had knee replacement surgery, so like, which is kind of a big deal. She's almost 70, so I mean, like, she's recouping, like she's home, but I was over there helping her do stuff too, and not stealing her Norco because I'm an adult now. So,
You can get your own.
right? No, I mean not in the past. You know as well as I do. Actors, the landscape has changed over this past decade. It ain't like it used to be. So no, it was fucking low key, and then that was it. I mean, I feel like it's different because like we were talking so much this weekend. Like it's not like I can be like, oh, I haven't talked to you since last Monday. Like we've been in contact pretty
Well, you're not
regularly this
telling
past
me
week.
what you did. You're telling the audience what you did.
I really didn't. I was a normal person, I guess, for the most part. Watch movies, smoke dope. Finished watching the History of the World Part 2 on Hulu. It's pretty funny. Mel Brooks. And yeah, that's it. New Y2K came out. We decided we'd play it safe and cover a nice, normal movie that wouldn't ruffle any feathers politically. So we did Dukes of Hazzard 2005.
Oh yeah.
With Johnny Knoxville and a big old Confederate flag.
Holy shit! I forgot Johnny Knoxville was in that.
Yeah, he's one of the better parts of it. Burt Reynolds is in it too. And honestly, it made me wish I was watching Smoking the Bandit, which is I was a big Dukes of Hazzard fan as a kid, much like Mothman 46. Not that I'm going to out him, but we had a conversation about that last week. Yeah, I mean, I liked Dukes of Hazzard as a kid. It was something that like I would watch with the A-Team, like that, like just generic little boy stuff that you would watch, like Knight Rider and shit like that. That I liked it. Cars. It's people chasing, running away from the cops. What's not to like about it?
Sure.
Especially given this week's topic. So that's all I got. What about you? How did you end up going to the movies yesterday?
I went to the movies on Saturday.
And what'd you go see?
We watched the Super Mario Brothers movie.
And what did you think?
Oh God. I mean, it's okay. Okay, stop. Okay, hold on. Wait a minute. Let me stop for a second. It's way better than what was had in the 1980s. All right, way better, right? By a long shot. I did not know that Bowser was Jack Black until he started singing. Jack Black. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit, that's Jack Black. Had no idea up until that point. And it took a minute to get there,
Right.
I'm a little disappointed because I wanted the I wanted the it's a me Mario. I wanted that. I wanted that voice the whole movie. Like that's what I wanted. That's my Mario. It was okay, and then I was like, there's really no Yoshi in here, which I know why they didn't do it. I get it. Right? This is an origin story. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But it just kind of made me like realize like the climate of Mario anymore. Like Yoshi's not like a big deal anymore. It's not like a thing. You never ride Yoshi in the new games. It's weird.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that speaks more to your perception of Mario as a very narrow bandwidth.
Right.
Yoshi was not a thing before Super Mario Brothers 3,
Yeah.
and he was for a little bit afterwards, and there was the spin-offs, and then he wasn't
And then he
anymore.
wasn't. Yeah.
I mean, I thought me and my kid were walking out of it talking about it. I mean, the movie kind of very loosely borrows from the plot line of Super Mario Odyssey as far as Bowser trying to marry Peach in the white tuxedo that he wears and everything. Um, does that mean that we're going to see Cappy at some point? Right, Mario's little talking flying hat. There's a lot of mythology there, and they're
Yeah.
already like if you look at the stuff online, they're like, oh, what about are they going to do Wario and Luigi, like Luigi or whatever the fuck you say his name for the next one? Like that to me also feels like just a small segment of the Mario mythology. Like, I don't think there is a coherent Mario mythology.
There is.
It's just and if it feels like all the games are different. Like, does Sunshine have anything to do with fucking Galaxy? That has anything to do with Super Mario? Like, I don't know. Maybe there's a through line there that I just am not familiar with. But to me, it seems kind of fucking all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, there sort of is. It kind of is all over the place. But like, look at like Legend of Zelda, which should have a coherent storyline and doesn't. That timeline's been debated so many times amongst Nintendo fans.
Yeah,
You know, but there is, there's something to it. There's something there. There's some things that are canon and some things that are not, and it is kind of a mess. I think that they did it, you know, the best way they could have. But I didn't like, the joke amongst the fans is that like Mario is mean to Luigi. He's mean to him. And Luigi's always like a piece of shit and he's not good and nobody likes him and yada yada yada. I would have liked if they didn't do that. Not that nobody, I mean, Mario was nice to Luigi in the movie. It's just that like Luigi needed saving and that wasn't really, I didn't like that. I don't like that at all. I don't like having Luigi not really a part of the story. I would have rather seen Luigi shine, but I get it. Mario's the guy.
yeah. I felt like that might have just been a simplicity of storytelling. If they make Luigi, if they separate the two, and then make Luigi the princess that he's trying to save, and not so much the princess because the
Yeah.
princess is actually the Luigi type character. I mean, that might have been something about it too. Maybe it was more about representation and giving girls a character to see in pink PVC
Oh yeah.
to root for. I got to say this: the two things that I love the most about it, and it's not going to be the fucking voice acting or the plot. Number one, the visuals. Like, it was a beautiful
Oh
fucking
yeah.
animated movie, and
Looks
I
good.
don't say that very often. I mean, it really took. It's something that I normally just kind of take for granted, and I watch a lot of animation. And I was like, wow, this is really fucking pretty. It looks really good. The colors really pop. The graphics are really good. Like the rendering or whatever. Like, it looks good. It is I don't want to be like, it's a visual feast, but I mean, like, it looks fucking good.
That
Um,
scene where they're in Brooklyn in the beginning of the movie and like it's flooded or whatever, and that's how, they get down the sewer. Um, that scene, aside from the animated characters, like, I mean, looks like it's straight up out of a photograph. I mean, it looks real. I mean, it looks damn good.
Yeah. Yeah, and but then like the Mario stuff when they get to the
Yeah.
Toadstool Kingdom, like you're looking at it and it's so like fucking trippy. And that's the other thing that I liked about it too was that it stays I'm not saying that it's very authentic to the game, but it is kind of to a certain extent to the point that it makes you realize how weird and surreal playing the game was when you were a kid because you're
Yeah.
just running along and there's bricks in midair and they're hopping on them and shit and there's just kind of stuff flying at you from all over the place and you just kind of take it for granted and they really do kind of do like an apples to apples representation in the film and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense and it is kind of weird and abstract but I feel like that's the Super Mario vibe. Like that's
Well, they
what
make it make sense in that world. They did a really good job doing that.
they kind of do because they make it all seem like it's some kind of fucking obstacle course. Everything's an obstacle course they're trying to
Everything,
go through.
yeah.
And you're just kind of like, I guess that's part of it. I don't know. I dug it. I mean, the only thing and like the Donkey Kong stuff, it's like, well, it's obvious they couldn't include everything, so they just kind of decided like, okay, we're gonna do a Mario Kart scene, and we're gonna do a Donkey Kong scene, and we're not gonna do Luigi, and we're not gonna do the Koopa Kids or anything, but we can do a little bit of this and we can do a little bit of that. There's so many like interconnecting, just like weird bullet point story things from in the Mario universe that like I feel like they just took a handful and said, all right, here's movie 1. And when they go to make movie 2, they're going to grab another handful and they're like, all right, fucking here's Yoshi and Wario and
I agree.
whatever. Yeah.
I mean, well, that's what I'm saying. Like initially I was like, because they were on Yoshi's Island. I saw them. They were eating the fruits and there's all the Yoshis and I was like, oh my God, Yoshi.
Yeah.
And then they left. And they were gone. And I was like, okay, but, if spoiler alert, if you stay long enough, there's a cutscene that alludes to the fact that Yoshi's going to get a whole origin story, right? At least that's my takeaway from it, is that they're going to do another movie. It's going to be about Yoshi and how they all meet, right? That's what they're doing here. You got to go into it without knowing. God, I'm talking about a kids movie on my show that talks about alien dicks. But you got to go into it not expecting all the knowledge that you have now because we've had so many games and all this lore and all these shows and all this bullshit with it. You have to go into it knowing that this is an origin story. Like this is where it all started, I guess, in this version of the lore. So it wasn't terrible. My daughter really liked it. It got a standing ovation while I was at the theater. So
oh my God.
People must have really, really, really enjoyed it.
And you're looking around like, you guys think I'm fucking weird, standing up clapping for
a Mario movie.
Yeah.
It was okay. I don't have a reason to watch it again. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't the worst movie I've seen this year. It's better than 6.
I dug it. I would recommend it. I would say that like if you have kids, awesome. You have an excuse to go see it. You don't have to be this weirdo sitting there on their own. I will say, and I hate to say this because one of the screenwriters for it, Pat Casey, follows me on Twitter, and we interact semi-regularly. But did like it better than Sonic the Hedgehog movies, and I like those. I like those, but this was definitely something different, and this is worth checking out.
Yeah, I haven't seen those yet.
They're okay. They're more played a little bit more straight, but they're funnier than they should be. I'll say that. And Jim Carrey's always a blast. But Super Mario Brothers is just a little. I'm not acting like it's edgy, but it's a little weird, and I think I appreciated that. It seems kind of foreign. Like you can tell some shit some Japanese guys came up with. Like
yeah, I mean there is still love story there. Had they omitted the entire love story, I think that would have been a problem. But I think as like writers, they would have had no issue doing that. Like I think the only reason why that's included between Peach and Mario is because it's Peach and Mario and it's expected.
Right. And they make her look cute. Like I'm not gonna perv on animated character, but they put her in like leather, like pink leather jumpsuits.
Oh yeah,
and stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's not just wearing her princess dress everywhere, which is definitely a different direction for Peach. But that's all right. Okay.
I approve. Yeah.
So whatever. Like I said, it was okay. I did that. I earlier in the day I went to Fairborn to get ready for this alien event, and actually, it was pretty cool.
Good.
So the room itself. So there's a couple of pieces to this event, right? It's an interactive art exhibit, and there's going to be me there talking about real life UFO shit. So the first room that you walk into is my room. That's what I'm in charge of decorating. And it's going to be set up like a research room, like a genuine research room. Well, me and Anne now have like created a whole character and a whole story arc behind this room. So that's going to be interesting. And then the further back you go into this other room, which is a whole blacklight alien exhibit. And the shop owner, Cherish, she's inviting artists to bring their artwork in to be displayed at this exhibit. And that's the whole thing. Well, she's made a bunch of shit already. And I mean, it's really cool so far. Like, it's really fucking cool. I took a couple of pictures, not many, because I don't want to, you don't want people to come, right, see it.
Hmm.
But I haven't posted them yet. But there's like a little, like, she's made like a little alien autopsy happening. There was like a bunch of references to like killer clowns from outer space. So there's like the people, like baby dolls, like wrapped in like cotton candy and just like their faces out.
Oh my god, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's really fucking cool. Um, and like
It's also really disturbing too. I
bloody
am terrified of
popcorn.
that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. There's all kinds of fun
Oh,
stuff.
sick bitches.
There's like a UFO right in the middle of the whole room, and then there's like an inflatable cow like hanging on a string. It's really fucking cool. And then it's all blacklit. I mean, there's a face hugger. There's a huge ass face hugger there. All kinds of stuff. I mean, really, you just you have to just come see it. It's free. It's in Fairborn, Ohio. Secret Chamber House of Oddities and Artwork. May 6th. And but my piece of the room is what we were there working on. And we went and we were just kind of, I printed out some documents, and just to kind of see what the flow is and figure out what it is we needed. We have this entire wall that is going to be files from Project Blue Book, official documentation from like Gerald Ford begging to like release this information to the people about UFOs back then. Actual pictures of UFOs, alleged photos of aliens, and then a collection of UFO sightings from the area, like genuine UFO sightings from that area. So it's going to be really cool. We printed out over like 150 documents that we're going to go back next weekend and hang up somewhere.
Nice.
So that was fun. And there's going to be like a little desk with a typewriter and all kinds of, like I said, the room itself is going to tell some type of story. And
when is this event? One more time.
It's May 6th.
Wow.
From 1 to 9. Why?
I might actually be able to go to that.
You should definitely go to that.
I'm looking to go turkey hunting with my in-laws in Fort Wayne, and one of the weekends on that we might do it is that weekend. So that would get me 3/4 of the way there. It would just be another hour and a half, 2 hour drive to your weird little UFO room thing. And you go turkey hunting first thing in the morning too. So I could get up, shoot some shit, kill some turkeys, and then head over there and bring you one.
Oh yeah, it'll be great. Stick it right on the wall.
There you go.
It'll be fun. It really will be a great event. I can't speak highly enough of this woman who's running it, and I think she's fantastic, and she's awesome for putting on something like this. And I think that, again, everybody should go. I know that there's other stuff happening that weekend. Actually, how much tea do I want to share on the show? We found out after the fact that there was a local UFO convention happening with some local UFO group that like I've never heard of, and this is like a big convention. Like Micah Hanks is supposed to be there, a bunch of other people, a bunch of other big names. It's happening at the base. Well, I don't think it's happening at the base. I think it's happening at like a hotel, like right outside of the base. And we were like, well, shit, that sucks. Everybody's going to be there, So she extended the hours of this event. Initially, it was only supposed to be until like 6, from like 1 to 6. Well, now it's 1 to 9. And
well, could you partner up with them and be like, hey, I'll send my people your way if you send your people my way. And
I was thinking about, asking, because like I said, I kind of know some of those people. So I not anybody that like I know, but like I know them enough to be like, hey, you're going to be in town. You might as well. Why don't you come, hang out when you're done there?
Right. Yeah.
The guy canceled his event. He didn't sell enough tickets, so he canceled it.
So don't laugh about it. That's probably.
I am gonna laugh about it. He canceled his. Well, the tickets were $250 a piece.
Oh my god! Yeah. That's.
I'm not gonna say what else I want to say about it on air, but yeah, I mean, come on. I know the people that go to these things. They don't have no $250 per ticket. Nobody's worth seeing. Fucking, there's bands that like people won't pay for because
that's like floor Guns N' Roses seats. Like, you better be fucking playing November Rain,
right?
If I'm gonna spend 200. Yeah.
So all the people, there's people that probably did really plan for this, maybe booked rooms, they were already ready. Well, guess what? We already have an event that you can come to if you were supposed to go to that event. Now you can come to ours, and it's free. So there's that.
Well,
Just saying.
Or you could
Uh,
$250 and buy a plane ticket to Cuba. Like,
right. I mean, there's a bunch of shit you can do with $250.
wow, good
You
for. I
know,
mean, hey, that's a big swing, and I do usually like big swings, you know.
but
But
also
yeah,
no
that's
very
that
bigness.
that kind of sounds like the Fire Festival of paranormal conventions.
Of the UFO world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was really no, it was really fun. It felt neat to be. I don't know. It made my job feel very real. I mean, I know that these are all display pieces, but we were like, like we found this gap in time of like UFO sightings and events and things like that didn't really happen, and it just kind of goes along with all the gaps in time that we found. Like, there's like this huge gap in history where like no
Mhm.
high strangeness exists, not on official record at all. Period. Not through news media. It's really strange. And, so we're kind of trying to, get to the bottom of why. And so while we're like trying to look up like good document, because that was like the thing about it. Cherish was like, well, I want this to look real. Like, I want these things to be real. Like, I don't want you to just stick a picture of a UFO, someone drew on there. Like, I want it to be a real thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, great. So we've been kind of investigating, local reports and Project Blue Book and all that fun stuff. And it's just been interesting and it felt good. It felt like I did something that day, even though most of the time we just spent it, looking at old documents, taking screenshots, and then going to the library and printing them. So whatever. And then I took my daughter out to the movies. And then the next day, much like Pat O, there was Easter and eggs to be found.
Right.
And I found them. So that was good. I did the family thing. Oh, speaking of, you had mentioned it earlier. Speaking of Jim Carrey, that's another thing I've been doing. I've been showing my daughter Jim Carrey movies. I
And
have. I
what's the
have.
most recent one?
The Mask.
Okay.
So just like within the past week, we watched both Ace Ventura's and then The Mask. And she's enjoyed them. She liked Ace Ventura better than The Mask, but she still enjoyed The Mask. So what
Yeah.
my 11-year-old thinks of Jim Carrey. But I'll tell you what, some of that comedy in all those movies don't hold up to this day. I wish they would do The Mask again. And I wish they would do it right.
Well, they did the Jamie Kennedy one.
Oh, God, honestly, I'll be honest. I've never even watched that one.
The Son of the Mask. It's supposed to be pretty terrible.
I've heard it's pretty terrible. When The Mask came out, it came out in the 90s, and I was a kid, and was it the 90s? It was like right at the tail end, I think. And I was really into it. I got really into the comic. There was a TV show too that they had, but there was like the comics, and not like Jim Carrey, like for real, the comics. And I got into them. And man, The Mask is fucking brutal. Like,
yeah, well, and it goes through different people too. Like
Yeah.
it doubles down on the Loki connection, and Stanley Ipkiss, who's the Jim Carrey character in
Right.
The Mask, he's just one of the different owners that they have. And I think, like, you know how at the end of the movie, like, the bad guy puts on the mask?
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a couple issues where, like, he's the mask, and like
Yeah.
they go through that. Like, it goes through different hands, and
Yeah.
different people use the power different ways.
Yeah. And I just feel like this, I mean, it was okay for what it is, but it definitely didn't show what it could be. Let's make fucking comic book movies ultra violent, guys. Why aren't we doing that? Why are they so fucking corny and hokey and stupid? Why aren't we making them what they are? Makes me mad.
I don't know.
So if anybody out there is a creative mind at all, you should definitely consider making a movie based on The Mask and making it for real and gory and gross like it should be and crazy.
If I was gonna, what I always loved was, I don't know if you've ever seen The Head, which was an MTV animated thing that was based on a comic.
No.
It's about a guy who is out stargazing one night, or he's like in astronomy class, and then he gets hit by a UFO, and it's an alien that can't live in the outside world, so it lives in his head. So he's got a giant head, that's like, I don't know, it lives like, it's like another like 4 feet off that his skull's elongated, and sometimes his head splits open and the alien comes out for a little bit and does stuff. And the alien that lives in his head is pretty cool and they get along. But there's an alien that lives in somebody else's head who's the bad alien, who's a parasite, and he's trying to build this device to bring all these things to Earth. and Jim, the main character, who's got the alien living in his head, and his head's giant now. He joins a support group of other freaks, and there's like a guy with a mouth in his stomach, and a girl with like a tail, and like all this other stuff. It's I don't know why I just thought about that, but it was kind of the same era as The Mask and all that shit. It was an MTV cartoon. It was pretty good, and
Yeah.
then they made one season of that, and they followed it up with The Max, and that's something that chicks seem to like a lot. The Max cartoon, or the comic, you ever see that?
No.
Where like this chick was she's this really pretty girl, and she was assaulted, and she developed this like split personality, which is like this super bloody Judge Dredd looking superhero called the Max, and he defends her, and it's kind of like that Tank Girl era, Tank Girl. And I'm throwing so many fucking '90s references out here, and I'm sure they're all going straight over your head because you were like 4 when this stuff came out. But never mind.
I just think they should make a really good movie about The Mask.
Okay, fair
A
enough.
couple of them, even.
Point taken.
That I listen. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed Jim Carrey's Mask, but I think that's probably just more nostalgia based. And that. Anyway, that was my weekend. That's what I did. So there's that. Yeah. So I don't have any news this week.
Right. I don't either.
So
There's nothing to talk about.
I'm sure there's stuff to talk about.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not talking about that, but I'm sure there's other stuff to talk about. I'm sure there's news pieces. I just have not had. I'm busy. So.
Yeah. I looked. There was. I will say this. There's Singular 14 Society has a really interesting article about people that reported seeing real life Easter bunnies.
Yes, yeah.
And I really couldn't. Outside of opening up that webpage and just reading the first 2 paragraphs of their news article, I wasn't going to do that this week. But I suggest that you check it out. It's an interesting read because there's multiple cases of people at different eras in history living in different spaces reporting very similar things. And I don't think it means that the Easter Bunny is necessarily real, but that maybe we manifest some kind of thing, or I don't know what. But
Yeah.
Worth checking out. It was that's the only kind of paranormal thing that was on my radar this week, besides the obvious that I thought about covering. So
Yeah, when Tobias was your stand-in, not last Christmas, but the Christmas before,
right.
That we had talked about like Santa.
Yes.
And he had mentioned that he had a fucking Santa Claus report.
He mentions that in the story too, towards the end.
Yeah. And I think he also did go on to talk about the Easter Bunny reports.
Mm-hmm.
But very interesting. You want to talk about some bona fide high strangeness. That's it right there. But I believe he is working on a book about sightings of these types of creatures, and what that might entail, or what maybe his theory about what that might look like. So,
right. Well, there is like a bunny spirit. I'm going to look it up. I think it's called a puka. That if you've ever seen the movie, Harvey with Jimmy Stewart, he has an imaginary friend that's like a 7-foot tall rabbit, and he talks to him the whole time. It's actually worth checking out because everyone thinks that Harvey is I forget if it's Jimmy Stewart's name is Harvey, the rabbit's name is Harvey. But basically the whole movie, Jimmy Stewart's got an imaginary friend and he talks to him, and everybody kind of treats Jimmy Stewart like he's special, right? And then at the end you see Harvey and it's this horrific 7-foot tall rabbit. And the explanation was that it was a puka spirit or whatever they're called. So yeah, Harvey with Jimmy Stewart we're checking out.
Okay.
Yeah. Not a Jim Carrey movie, but
not Jim Carrey. Yeah. Well, Interesting. Well, I mean, so yeah, that was my week. I thought that it would be interesting, since we've kind of talked about it a lot lately, for our true crime episode. It's kind of coming a little early, a little closer to the last one, just because the next two that we have planned are based around particular anniversaries. So if you want a clue, I guess, if you follow the show that closely, the next two episodes are anniversary shows based on particular creatures. But anyway, because we've been talking a lot about the Otis Toole and, Henry Lee Lucas and all that, false confessions, thought that would be really neat to cover on the show. Because why the fuck would you admit to doing something that you did not do, especially in like high profile cases like murder,
Right.
So yeah, what, Pat, were you familiar at all with people that falsely confessed to things before?
Not, and I mean, I have my stuff that I could talk about, but I'll probably do that towards the end because I know you're headed in a very specific direction with this, and I don't want to derail it just yet. But not unless they were under duress. So Chicago had a couple very high profile cases where the police were beating the shit out of people and making them confess, and we'll get to that when we get to it. But outside of that, like that type of situation, no, man. Why would you cop to something you didn't do? Like, that seems very strange to me.
Yeah.
And not only that, but that, somehow then through your trial that you would still be found guilty. Like, even if you were in that interrogation room and you're freaking out and you're like, fine, I did it, leave me alone, give me a glass of water, whatever. If you were to then go on trial and say, hey, that confession, I didn't mean what I said, and there's no evidence to and I did, like, if you were innocent, right, and you were able to walk back the confession, you would think that you recanting plus the lack of evidence because you did not commit the crime would be enough to get you off at that point. But it sounds like that's not always necessarily the case, that some people get convicted based on a coerced confession, and it's a travesty of justice.
Yeah, I mean, well, exactly. And, people that, sometimes that confession is just as good as gold. They don't need anything else. They in their head, they're like, oh, okay, case closed. This is easy. And it is pretty insane. But what's even more insane is that, like, this still happens to this day a lot.
Mm.
More than it should. And, we're not talking about like before the laws got, better. They really didn't. It's not a whole lot that has been done about this. But, there's, false confessions are categorized by by three different types. And what's strange about that is, like, Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole, don't really fall into any one of those three categories. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
They're really known for, confessing to all these murders, but they don't fall in any of them. So that's interesting. So the first type of confession that you have is, voluntary false confessions. These are people who incriminate themselves. They go out of their way to go to the police and say, hey, I did this really fucked up, horrible thing. And then, due to investigative work or things that just didn't really make any sense, they find out, well, it's not possible that person did it. For example, high profile cases get them a lot. I don't know why. 250 people confessed to abducting the Lindbergh baby. And then the over 500 people admitted to killing, the Black Dahlia, Elizabeth Short.
Yeah, that's weird.
500 people, right? Why would you want to be known for that? And then,
like, don't you like being free? Like, let's pretend you get convicted and you go to jail. Like, is your life so boring and shitty on the outside that, like, I don't know, man. That makes you realize the mental health crisis in this country has always been there.
Always,
because both of those crimes are like centuries old. They're at least 100 years old or so.
Yeah, those are definitely older cases. Where that seems to take place. Probably the most notable and the most recent amongst like the true crime folk is John Mark Carr. In 2006, he admitted to killing JonBenét Ramsey. and kind of in a big way. And I mean, they investigated the hell out of him. His DNA didn't match the DNA that they found in the John Bonet case, and I believe he wasn't even in the country at the time.
Man,
So
I would like to do an episode on her because I like that's right in my backyard. Right? She was from Chicago or Illinois or something,
yeah,
suburbs. And I honestly could not tell you anything about the case except for the fact that she was like a child, pageant girl. Like that's really all I know about her. And that happened like what, like late '80s or something.
yeah.
I was like cognizant, but I wasn't really old enough to kind of follow along with it. I would like to I would like to dive into that
Oh
story.
yeah, she's on the list, so it's
Yeah.
it's on the list of cases. The true crime episodes, man, there's not an end to the amount that we could do. But yeah, she's definitely on the list. High profile case, unsolved. And the whole pageant thing. I mean, hell, that's not even a big part of the story at all. But we'll talk about it eventually. But yeah, this guy, John Carr came out and was like, yeah, I killed her, and was like, trying to convince everybody that he did, and he definitely didn't. So I mean, what makes people do that? There doesn't really seem to be like a clear cut answer. They just do it. I guess for notoriety. I don't know. They think they're cool. I have no idea why people do that. I don't. Pat, do you have any type of reasoning whatsoever why these people would freely incriminate themselves?
Fuck no. I deny shit that I did do. I'm not gonna fucking cop the stuff I didn't do. You know what I mean?
Right, so dumb. I mean, if anything, this probably is the closest category where Henry Lucas and Otis Toole fall into.
No, hold on. I have one anecdote that I can share with the audience that might shed some light on this type of behavior.
Okay.
So, a couple weeks ago, my wife had a dream that I cheated on her with an Asian woman. She woke up and she told me about it, and she was very like shaken up by this idea that I had cheated on her with an Asian woman. And I said, okay. And you know how I said early in the show that they went away for the weekend? Before she came back this morning, I hid chopsticks all over the house.
Oh my god.
Next to her bed, in the shower, in the medicine cabinet. Because we bought like a pack of like 30 kind of nice, like reusable wooden chopsticks and stuff. Because me and my kid like to use them when we eat Chinese food. So I had all these chopsticks and I just hid them everywhere. And she's finding them all day long. And it is the most amusing thing in the world to me. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, shit, she left them behind, And now I didn't cheat on her with the fucking Asian chick, right? But I'm planting fake evidence to suggest that I did.
Oh my god.
And I think that maybe some of those people just like fucking with the police or something, and like, oh yeah, I'm the one that did it, and that way the police like come in and they fucking, and then you find out they didn't do it, and you're like, haha, fuck you, I wasted your day. Like, I don't know, could that be it? Like,
I mean, what? So just like it's like reverse psychology. So like when you do actually cheat with an Asian woman, she's like, oh yeah, right.
well, first of all, how racist is that? That like I'm gonna have sex with an Asian woman and she's just gonna naturally drop chopsticks all over the place.
Yeah, that's terribly racist. Yeah,
What?
yeah.
It's like she comes home. I'm not even gonna make another comparison to what that
No,
could be like.
no,
Because that would just be unfortunate. No, we're not gonna
don't do
do
it.
that. No.
But so these people that confess to murdering people, they're like, well, I'm just getting ready for the big one because they have plans.
Or they're merry pranksters that just like to get a rise out of authority figures. You know what I mean? That's what it might be more than anything. That's honestly my take, is that some people just like fucking with the power structure, and there's that might be what it is. And there's a mental illness component too, I'm sure.
There's got to be something. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, people do it. I've never admitted to doing something terrible that I didn't do, just because I thought it would be cool to do that. So I don't know. Not that far. You know what I mean? Like that's pretty far. That's pretty odd. Like when I'm like, oh yeah, I'm I'm pro-choice. I'm like, oh yeah, kill them babies. I don't really mean that. I just say it because fuck the pro-lifers, that's it. I mean, but I don't know. Anyway, moving on to the next category here.
You just eliminated half our audience. Congratulations.
Fuck 'em. Fuck them babies and fuck them too. Um, so there's also coerced, internalized confessions. So
Yes.
this one's really interesting because the suspect didn't do it, right? There's no real evidence that they did do it. However, there is a seed of doubt planted in their mind, and they believe that they did it, for whatever reason. And, you know, here's a really good example. You know, King of the Hill. Have you watched King of the Hill, Pato?
Yes, I have come across an episode or two of King of the Hill in my
I know
day.
it's an obscure reference, but King of the Hill, you know, just fun fact, it's my comfort show. So it's like pretty much on in the background at all times at my house. There's an episode of King of the Hill where Mr. Strickland's mistress is murdered. Okay, well, she's dead. She's killed in some fashion, and there's kind of a murder mystery. Okay, and people think Hank did it, and Hank even questions that he may have did it because at one point in time she's like trying to blackmail Hank. At one point in time he goes to her apartment, she's not there, and he goes and accidentally smokes weed with her roommate. And he gets high, and he's like freaking out that he got high, right?
Did they find her like in the dumpster behind a motel or something?
Yeah, Debbie killed herself on accident.
Yeah, yes, I've seen that one before. Okay,
but like the police officer is like, well, your alibi doesn't check out. You know, her roommate, were you hanging out with him? And he's like, no, I wasn't, because it doesn't want anybody to know that he was smoking pot. But because of like him trying to hide the fact that he was getting high, you know, he's also kind of incriminating himself to the police. It's hilarious. But Hank actually, once he finds out that he's under suspicion of killing her, thinks that he could have possibly done it, to the point to where he is like recreating throwing a body in a dumpster with like a sack of like sand or some shit, because he thinks that he might have done it. So that's a really popular occurrence of something like this. Another something, I'm going to tell this on the show. I don't think I've told one person in my entire life this story, so I'm going to tell it here publicly for everybody to know. When I was a very young child, probably 6 or 7, while my parents were asleep, I cut my hair off. It was terrible. It was awful. I think every little girl does it. Cut my hair off. And when my parents woke up and found the mess, I told them, I don't know what happened. They automatically blamed my sister. They thought my sister did it. And to this day, my sister believes that she cut my hair off.
Oh my God.
I mean, she like tells that story to people like, oh yeah, one time I was a kid, I cut my sister's hair. She didn't. I know I did that. I know I did it. And she doesn't know.
See, that is not to fucking totally derail this, but that is why I doubt the legitimacy of some of my paranormal encounters, is because you can convince yourself of something that is 100% historically inaccurate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you want to, or if you're conditioned to believe the story. You know what I mean? You will rewrite your own memories to match that narrative, and then you'll remember you trying to remember the memory, and that becomes the memory.
Yeah.
You know, like if you were to ask your sister to visualize like what happened,
she probably could. Yeah,
she could, and none of it's fucking real.
Right.
It's all fabricated, and like, God, yeah.
And I know it's not. You know, I finally told my dad. You know, I was the one person I told my dad about it, and I told him, I was like, and nobody knows that she didn't do it except now me and you. And you know, he thought that was hilarious. And you know, it's funny, but it's funny because like in that situation about like rewriting it wasn't even like a traumatic experience that happened. It's just kind of something that kids do, right? She wasn't like beat to death or anything for it. You know, my parents were just like, oh fuck, well that sucks, you know, and that was it.
Yeah.
I had the worst haircut ever for like the next 6 months to a year. So it's terrible. But yeah, she has no idea. So typically when people are talking about these kind of coerced memories, you know, kind of replaced memories, there's usually some caveat that's at play there. In Hank Hill's case, it was the marijuana. And my sister's case, it was the fact that she was a very young kid and very impressionable.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes the police themselves can play a part in that because they can they'll be like, oh, well, what were you doing that night? And they're like, well, I don't know, I was getting really high, or I don't know, I was getting really drunk. They're like, well, then how do you know you didn't do this thing? But then that is typically also kind of in line with another form of
Brainwashing.
well, no, it goes along also with it's coerced compliant confession, and that is the most popular. That is where people actually get convicted of shit after they um, confess the shit that they didn't do. In this case, police use a specific tactic in order to get a confession out of you. So they do things like they'll make promises of, a lesser sentence. It doesn't even start out that way though. But they'll be like, hey, look, if you tell me what's going on here, that I can personally make sure that, it's going to be easy, right? You're going to get a plea deal. And that's not the case. The police don't really have a say in how you get charged. A lot of the tactics include stuff like, just exhausting the person until they confess, just to be able to leave the interrogation. Some of these interrogations are like 50 hours long. 50 hours. I mean, that's fucking crazy. I mean, it's insane how long they last. They'll pretend to be your friend. They'll pretend that they care about you. And they're only here for your well-being, not anybody else's. They lie about evidence.
Mm-hmm.
They say, well, we have this thing with your DNA all over it, or we have, because this doesn't just happen in murder and rape cases. I mean, this happens in a lot of situations. And, but they'll lie. They'll say, we have this thing that goes against you. And then guess what? You start questioning. You're not very confident now because they have something against you. You start questioning your memory. And so it goes back to the other type of confession. They both kind of can go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then, there's been cases of these police officers, people getting like polygraph tests and they pass. And then the police officer goes, well, you failed the polygraph test. It's straight up lie.
Right.
So it's very interesting. And then guilt induction is also very popular. And they don't just like play on the guilt of the situation. So again, in a 50-hour interrogation, you're going to be talking about a lot of things. I mean, they'll kind of get to know you a bit and be like, well, oh, you take care of your sick mother. That's what you do all the time. Well, how's your mom going to feel when I tell her that I have this evidence against you? Or things like that kind of play against you in order to get you to confess. So.
It's fucked up.
It's really fucked up. In that case, there are tons of cases that are, they're most of the time, I mean, I hate to say it, but most of the time there's clearly something wrong with them mentally.
Yeah.
They've got, very low IQs. They have, severe mental illness, things like that. Those people are very easy to get a confession out of. A really big notable case didn't even happen in the United States. This happened in Canada. It was a case of Simon Marshall, and Simon was again a very what's the PC term for this?
What?
He had a low IQ.
Special needs.
Special needs. Okay, there we go. I don't know what it is now. It changes every couple of years, it seems. I don't want to be wrong. If it's not that, send me a message and correct me. But yeah, he ended up being convicted of 13 charges of rape after coercion. And, what's fucked up is that there was DNA. There was DNA evidence that the police never tested. During the trial, it was never tested. That would have let him go, but they never tested it. He confessed after having such a lengthy interrogation process. He said, "Yeah, I did this," and he got sent to prison. He was sentenced to prison for 5 years, and in prison is, really where this man's nightmare began. He was beaten. He was raped constantly. Had boiling water poured on him. Just absolutely tortured in prison. Now he did eventually get out. And when he got out, he did sue to the tune of $2.3 million, which he correctly got. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Simon Marshall lives in a psychiatric hospital and probably will for the rest of his life due to the psychological damage of being in prison and being in that process.
Yeah.
So, what's it matter? What's $2.3 million matter when that's the reality that you got to live with?
You're too comatose to spend it. Yeah.
Right. Who cares? A lot of these people, end up getting once they're found not guilty. It's fucking shocking how many of these cases are, have DNA evidence that are never tested against them, and then eventually, especially now, with like the DNA database, with like the home DNA test kits and shit, a lot of these cases have been solved, and people have been able to get out of prison with that evidence, and but the DNA evidence has always been there, and they just have never tested it against the fucking suspect. I mean, isn't that the first thing you do? Isn't that the first thing you should do?
Well, not if you don't want it to come back inconclusive and ruin your case or something.
Yeah.
So but let's just rewind for a second here. So I remember a very long time ago, you convinced me to get a 23andMe kit because we were going to DNA test ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. We never did that show. I did mine and found out that I was like 99% Irish, which was depressing. But you're telling me now that my DNA that I sent in for that thing is in a database somewhere?
Yes.
And the police have access to it?
Yes.
Well, yes, they do. I mean, I'm not necessarily worried about that so far. I mean, moving forward, who knows what tomorrow brings, but
yeah.
I haven't done anything illegal yet with my life.
They caught some notable serial killer recently with it, and it's not because he did the DNA. So that's the other thing about it, is that it's not necessarily that it's your DNA, Pato, that they need, but through all this DNA tracking, they're seeing all these people's relatives. As a matter of fact, they traced that serial killer with like a great nephew or some shit, and ended up finding the guy that way.
So where does it say when I send my spit into 23andMe? Did I sign something that said that I allow this then to be turned over to the authorities? No,
but I believe you do give it, like, you give the usage to them to do with what they will.
Fuck, that's very invasive, and I was not aware of that when I used that kit.
You got to read your TOS, bud.
I was just so excited to do the episode with you. I just fucking stuck that shit in my mouth and then threw it in an envelope and
still did the episode. We'd make it a Patreon episode now. That'd be cool.
Did you ever test yourself? Do you know what you got?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
I'm like 46% Italian.
Oh, see, now you said it. Now, why the fuck would we do a Patreon episode?
Because there's other things in there too. Obviously, 46% isn't 100.
Yeah.
So anyway, but we'll do a Patreon episode on it. But if you submit your DNA to those things, I guess for anybody listening, if you don't know this, if you haven't done one of those tests, then I mean your DNA could be matched with the criminal database.
And in the future, one of my kids could commit a crime, and then they check the DNA against the database and be like, "Oh, well, we know who your dad is."
Right, you would be enough of a match, right?
Yeah. Jeez, I'd have to throw one of them under the bus.
Because it wouldn't be right, because it's not like, obviously it's your child, so it wouldn't be 100% matched to your DNA, but it would match enough. And then there's like particular signatures that they can also look for, like certain genes that only certain people have and things like that.
They were able to find. I'll say this: when I did it, I knew that I had half sisters out there, but they were able to correctly identify my two half sisters as half sisters, not just like, oh, you have X amount of DNA together, you must be related. They said, nope, these two girls are your half sister, and you guys have the same father and different mothers.
And well, what's neat about it is that when you check it, have you checked it? Have you looked at it recently?
Oh yeah, probably like maybe once a month.
It changes.
Mine hasn't changed too much, but there's always new people added to it. My genetic makeup hasn't changed, where they said that.
Really?
Yeah, no, they're still saying I'm 99.9% Irish.
Wow.
But yeah, they do. I do have more cousins. That changes.
Interesting. Yeah, mine changed, and it's. I'm not saying like too much. It's just that within those like depths, like I said, in my 46% Italian, then they can break it down even further, and there's more detail added to it. And so there's kind of more, and then you can like also like pay to do like a medical thing and all kind. I mean, there's all kinds of shit. And then the DNA just gets better. And as the DNA gets better and as it changes, they will update you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they keep it on file. But yeah, that's the way that works. Well, what good is DNA if it's just sitting around not being tested against anybody? That's a controversial topic for a lot of people. A lot of people don't like the fact that your DNA is kept on file, but like also, um, I don't plan on ever killing or raping anybody, so I don't.
Oh, actually, mine has changed. I am now 100% British and Irish.
Oh,
God damn it, that's boring.
super white guy.
I am, yeah.
Very white.
I thought I was French. I really did, because I thought my grandma was supposed to be French. That's what always threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
Is that my grandma was supposed to be Dougal. She was, on my mom's side, she was French. Everyone else I knew I was Irish. My other 3 grandparents, but she was the one. She was, I don't know.
Maybe your mom was switched at birth.
Well, and they say that you don't, because so like looking at my 2 half sisters now, both of them, we have the same dad, we have different moms, but I have a higher percentage of DNA shared with one of them versus the other.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't always get split in the middle.
Right. Yeah. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. It really is. It's neat. I like doing it. I don't mind the fact that I did it. Because like I said, I don't intend on raping and murdering anybody. So
do you have any high cousins? Have you gone through here?
No, I don't really have anybody that's too close to me. And then most people don't have pictures, so I'm like, okay, well,
some of mine do. The O'Sullivans are photogenic people.
I haven't really looked at
some of them I would, but not most of them. Just look like boring Irish chicks.
Yeah, I've never heard of all these people. So my maiden name, right? My maiden name. One time I was on an Instagram live back when, the group used to do those things a lot. And there was somebody else in there with my maiden name. And I was like, oh, holy shit. And my maiden name is so fucking unique. That, there's no way that we're not related.
It's like mozzarella or something. It's like super dago.
That's it. That's my, that's my.
That's mozzarella.
It's mozzarella. Yeah. Ashley Mozzarella. That's me.
I'm glad you like that one. Look at you laughing.
Pretty good. That was pretty good. But anyway, back to these people, these sad people that falsely confess to things. When I think of these false confessions, I always think of the hit TV show, the hit Netflix series, Making a Murderer. And that's a cool one. Pato does not know about it much. I don't know how you've not.
My roommate watches that shit, so I will walk into the room and she'll be on episode 2, and I'll say, "What's this about?" And she'll give me a brief description, and then I'll walk out of the room.
Did you just call your wife your roommate?
Yeah. So like, there's a lot of things that I know about tangentially, but I don't.
Sure.
You like another one is the Tiger King shit. I never watched a single episode of fucking Tiger King.
Oh my god!
I don't know. I know. It's gay dudes that own big cats, and there's Carol, right? And they fucking were sending assassins after one another, and then Tiger Joe got caught, and that's it. But when you sit down to watch it, and you find out that your roommate's already like halfway through it, you're just like, well, I'm not going to start it now because they're already watching it, and I'm just going to go in the other room and read.
I don't know. I watch the shit by myself, so I don't. That's what you get when
you don't have that competitive stuff. Like if you're not watching TV, the clock stops moving forward. She could be down there right now watching the newest. Like she's probably watching Succession and shit. So I'm gonna come home and be like, "Oh, what happened on Succession?" It's pointless for me to watch it because she just watches it before me and then tells me.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah. So you can. Well, I guess so. I think honestly, for being somebody that's not like a big true crime guy, or so you seem not like a big true crime guy, I think Making a Murderer would be right up your alley. I think you'd love that shit.
Well, I know they're from Wisconsin,
They
so
are.
I'm already kind of interested.
Yeah.
And it's isn't it like a older guy and a younger guy, and the older guy killed somebody but convinced the younger guy to confess to it?
No. So,
Okay.
okay, I'll give you the quick rundown here. So Stephen Avery was serving a 25-year sentence in prison for raping a woman, right?
Oh, no
And
bueno.
what's that?
Guys, try to avoid that. No bueno. We don't do that.
So, but listen, he was eventually let go because guess what? DNA evidence collected from the rape kit found out that he didn't do it. Some other fucking guy did it. And so, the show itself that you're watching, of course, they kind of go over that case and all the evidence that was kind of against the guy. Not against the guy, but was like pointed to the fact that he didn't do this to begin with. The fucking witness was like, he didn't do it. And he still got convicted. So they let him go. Okay. So while he's out of prison, just got out of prison. All right. He is filing a lawsuit. Okay. Against the county for the wrongful conviction, which he should. Listen, I'm gonna tell you something right now.
Oh yeah, okay.
If you are wrongfully convicted of something, like you automatic payout, you shouldn't even have to go to court and shit. I mean, that money should just be yours. You should walk out of that prison that day with that money.
Right, and then because they couldn't pay him, they arrested him for some other shit, right?
Well, not necessarily, maybe not. So while he's out and about, this woman goes missing and ends up murdered. Okay. And the police say that Stephen Avery did it. All right. They say that he did it. He's the one that did it. And because the last place that so the family owns a junkyard. Okay. They're in the business of buying and selling cars. Also, they have a car junkyard. And she comes to take pictures. She's like a photographer for these cars for like fucking Auto Writer or whatever fucking, car magazine you read. And, so she comes out to take pictures, and that was the last place that she was supposed to have been, was the Avery property. And Stephen Avery was there. He says that she didn't. She never showed up. As a matter of fact, he left a voicemail on her phone, was like, hey, you didn't show up. And that's that. What they decided to do was they started to question Stephen Avery's nephew. They're all white trash people. I'm just going to say that now. They're all fucking white trash, right? They all live on the same property in different trailers on the same fucking property in fucking Wisconsin. And so they pull in his nephew, and the nephew, they start interrogating him. The nephew is special needs, clearly, and he's underage. He ended up confessing to murdering this woman, to helping his uncle murder this woman. They tied her to the bed. They raped her. They slit her throat. She bled all over the place. And then just to make sure that she was dead, they took her out to the garage and shot her. And then took her body outside and burned it in the fire pit. The problem with all of that information, Pato, is that there's not one drop of blood found anywhere in Stephen Avery's trailer. And this man's house is not clean. It's not like he's, a fucking OCD freak and he's got to, keep everything sparkly. It's not. Like, there's no fucking way that murder happened the way that they say it did, because there's no evidence for it aside from this child's confession. It's a child. And, there's like a big, and it's funny, but it's not funny, but there's like a meme, and it's like Brendan Dassey, and he's like, that's the nephew. And he's like, okay, can I go to WrestleMania now? Because like this kid is like, that was his thing. Like, he wanted to go to WrestleMania. He wanted to go home so he could watch WrestleMania, right? He wanted to go home so he had a school project he had to work on. He kept saying that. I got to get home. I got to work on this project. And they were like, oh yeah, you will. Just tell us what happened, And now that kid, he's a man now, but he's sitting in prison for the rest of his life. And there's all kinds of other shit surrounding it. I'm not, that's a whole nother. If people know they've watched it, but those are the basics, just watch it. If that piques your interest and you don't know what I'm talking about, just go watch it. But there's all kinds of like planted evidence and bullshit. And I mean, look, Stephen Avery's not a good guy. The guy has a track record. Again, he's white trash, but I don't think he killed that woman. And there's evidence that points to somebody else that killed her that they've never even looked at, because they had this confession from this special needs child and decided that was good enough. As a matter of fact, there's a season 2 of Making a Murderer, and in season 2, Brendan Dassey, the nephew, 3 times he was supposed to go home. 3 times he had judges say, "You're allowed to go home," or letting you go home. And then they fucking decided not to send him home. I mean, it's absolutely insane.
And why? What was the reasoning behind that?
It just depends. It just depended on the case, on, the circumstances. There was always some bullshit reason. It was nuts. It was crazy. I mean, it went all the way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, "Yeah, you can go home," and then decided, well, you know what? Actually, never mind. And
it's because the state would have to. Someone told me that it was because the state had to pay out or something. Is that what it is? Because the money that they would have owed them for wrongful imprisonment and all that shit, like they didn't want to.
So,
does that have anything to do with it?
Right. Okay. So that's the theory, right? Why would Manitowoc police try to frame this man? Why would they lie? Why would they plant all this evidence? That's why, because he had a lawsuit against him. He was getting ready to get like $15 million or something crazy,
right?
And they didn't want to pay him, and they don't want to look bad. So they had this situation that just kind of fell into their hands. Where, guess what? The victim did have it in her planner that she was supposed to be at that property, and they just fucking played it up. They just played it up and went with it. And it's really mind blowing when you start watching it. There's so many gotcha moments in it. You're just like, what in the fuck? Now there is a lot of stuff that they leave out too. But one of the things that a lot of people don't really look at is, again, who actually killed her and what are the facts behind it. I mean, stuff like her daily planner. There's like a situation where her planner, which was her work planner, right? All these appointments. She's a photographer. It's everything that she's supposed to be doing. It's with her at all times. And she physically had it with her. But somehow, some way, right? She takes the planner to the Avery property. Somehow, some way, that planner ends up with her ex-boyfriend. Her ex-boyfriend had it and gave it to the police. And he didn't see her that day, supposedly. So it's just weird stuff. Like, well, how did that happen if she wrote in it that day? Mm-hmm. It couldn't have. So it's just, there's all kinds of weird things about it, but it is probably the most famous case of coercion. I mean, even just on the basis alone of how the police interrogated, not Stephen Avery, not him, but the nephew. It was very unethical. They should not have done it the way they did it. There was no parent present. There was no lawyer present. They kept him for hours on end, and then there's videos of it. You can watch the interrogation. I mean, he should not have been convicted just on that alone, just based on that alone. Shouldn't have been convicted, and yet he was. So, and again, there's no way. I mean, they couldn't have committed the murder that Brendan Dassey said that they did it. It's just not possible. And so again, that's probably the most famous case, and man, it'll piss you off. It will piss you right off. It's shocking. It's really shocking. Now, granted, they had a reason to convict the guy, but so I mean, again, are you one of those people? Are you suing the county for millions of dollars, or are you not? But it's still very concerning that could be a possibility in your life. That you were in that situation. Can you imagine?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I hate to, especially in light of the scenario that I'm going to talk about, which is more race related. This is a bunch of white people. This is a bunch of white people in small town, suburban, well, not suburban, but small town Midwest, and they're still doing each other dirty like this. Like, it's a fucking, it's scary. It's scary, the level of injustice that we all face from the justice system.
Well, and I noticed that going through like some of these really notable cases, the West Memphis 3, that's another big one.
Yeah, I thought that's what I almost brought that up, but I know that was a little bit different because they were kind of framed by the stepfather. Yeah, right? Isn't that the theory now? Is that,
I believe so, but I think it's just a theory. But that's a big one. I figured if we're going to talk about it, eventually it'd be its own thing.
Sure.
Because there's just a lot. I mean, I guess just like making a murder, but I feel like people know enough about it to know, but not exactly.
Memphis? Yeah, that was something that I mean, I remember those Paradise Lost documentaries when I was in high school. Like those were super popular. And Damon Eccles now, like if you read books on magic or anything, he's like actually a very good author.
Yeah.
He's put a lot of stuff out there. So,
and so that's another big one. They had DNA evidence, none of them tested against. They had polygraph tests that they passed that just none of the evidence made sense. And, you know,
And once again, going back to the whole, like, it being about money more than anything, part of them being let go was that they had to plead guilty.
yeah.
They
Yes.
were, because they didn't want to, whatever state it was in. I think it might have been Georgia. I don't want to be wrong, but whatever state they were in didn't want to get hit with a wrongful imprisonment prison suit. So they're going to let you go. We're going to pardon you guys, full pardon. You can go, but we want you to sign this thing first, saying that you're guilty. That way, you can never come back and sue us.
Yeah. Yep. It sure
Which is
was.
fucking crazy, and they did it. I mean, they all
Of
they all
course.
signed it. Okay, what the fuck else are you gonna do? Are you gonna stay in there and hope that Eddie Vedder gets you out? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't fault them for making that decision.
But what they took, the deal that they took, it's so fucking common that it has a name.
What's it called?
It's called the Alfred plea.
Okay.
So that's the whole point, though, is that it's so common. This is such common practice that there's a fucking policy in there saying you're going to admit guilt. We can close this case. We're going to let you go. We know ethically you didn't do it, right? But on paper you did, and you're not going to sue us. That's what it says, and that's bullshit. It's fucking that shouldn't exist, you know. But yeah, that's a whole other thing. But I was saying that, you know, you were mentioning it's all small towns and all this. It is. And you know what? A lot of them, Pato, take place right in your state. A lot of them are from Illinois.
Well, I got a really good you want me to get into my shit now?
Yeah, get into it.
Okay, so when you brought this up and we were talking about this last week, the very first thing that came to mind for me was the John Burge case. So John Burge was, and this is something that I remembered throughout my childhood. It was always on the news. He was a American police detective and commander in the Chicago Police Department that was found guilty for having directly participated in or implicitly approved the torture of at least 118 people in police custody in order to force false confessions. So this was a story that if you live in Chicago, John Burge was in the news all the fucking time, because thankfully he ended up being fired in 1993 for this. Okay, and he went to jail, but the cases that the convictions that he had, those 118 people would slowly, we'd see those cases overturned or those people being pardoned, or they would turn around and sue the Chicago Police Department and be awarded millions of dollars. Still to this day, it's going on, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that, like, this guy still casts a fucking shadow, and he's been dead now for. He died in 2018, so he's been dead now for like 5 years, almost 4 or 5 years, and you still hear stuff in the news about the reaches of this case. So yeah, he was born in Chicago. He became a police officer in 1970 after getting back from Vietnam. He had he was a very, very, very highly decorated Vietnam officer. He got the Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry, and 2 Army Commendation Medals for Valor for pulling wounded men to safety under fire. He maintains, though, that he did not learn any prisoner interrogation, brutality, or torture techniques while in Vietnam. He just kind of came back that way. So yeah, gets discharged from Vietnam at age 21, comes back and becomes a Chicago police officer, age of 22. Like I said, he was from Chicago originally, and in the 20 years of service, he gained 13 commendations and a letter of praise from the Justice Department, and he made it all the way up to detective commander. So very high ranking. Unfortunately, during that time, he was involved in, like I said, the interrogations, torture, and false confessions over 118 people. And he also led a group of police officers known as the Midnight Crew, or Burge's ass kickers, or my personal favorite, the A-Team. Like, just like fucking sidestep for a second. So my dad was a Chicago police officer, and I was signed up to be a Chicago police officer as well. I had signed up to take the test, and I was on the list and everything. And I was working as a bouncer at the time, and ended up getting a DUI after leading the police on a police chase. Which, if you want to hear the full version of that story, listen to Y2K Movies, because it has a connection to Dukes of Hazzard. I incorrectly thought that police are not allowed to chase you across city lines, like in Dukes of Hazzard, how like the Dukes
Oh
will come
god.
into Hazzard County in the fucking police stop. So I was involved in a police chase, and I thought that I would cross from Chicago into Oklahoma, and the police would like fishtail in the middle of Pulaski and throw their hats down as I sailed off into the sunrise. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. They still kept chasing me. So at that point, I stopped. Anyway, totally tanked my my chance to be a police officer for a couple of years, and that's when I got into the field that I'm in now. Anyway, my point is that I know a lot of people that were cops, and some of them are kind of above the board and some of them aren't. And I will say this, that John Burge's strike team was known as the A team. And if someone gave me the opportunity to join the A team, I probably would have taken it.
Oh Jesus.
You know what I mean? Because it's the fucking A team, dude. Like, we're driving around in a van, fucking building weapons out of can openers. You know what I mean? Helping single moms and shit. Like, come on, that's a fucking... It's everything you always wanted to be. So anyway, what kind of broke his case wide open was that there was 2 police officers that were shot on a CTA bus in 1982, and Andrew Wilson was arrested for it. He was interrogated for about a day, and then eventually taken to the hospital with lacerations on various parts of his head, including his face, chest bruises, and second-degree burns on his thighs. And it was pretty hard to say that this stuff, like the accused came in this way. And it was actually a medical officer who saw Andrew Wilson post confession that wrote a letter to the mayor at the time, asking that the case be investigated on suspicion of police brutality. That kind of opened the can of worms, and it was it led to this guy being investigated, and yeah, they eventually convicted him, and it was a snowball effect, and a bunch of his cases got overturned, and they're still being overturned to this day. Bunch of shit there.
Jesus.
But here's
Okay.
so that's the first thing. Now, did you look at that picture that I sent you? Do you see the chat? Oh God, it's not there anymore. Hang on one second. I'm going to send you a picture or something.
Yeah, I don't see a picture.
So look in the Zencastr chat. Let me send this real quick.
Okay.
Do you got that?
Let me go pull it up here. I'm pulling it up. Trying to pull it up. There we go.
So describe what you're seeing.
Well, oh damn it! There's a bunch of ads. God, fucking capitalism.
Oh, you're so bad at this.
Oh God, this is So there's 2 white guys that look exactly like you think, holding guns, kneeling down, and underneath them is a black guy wearing horns, like deer horns and something. Oh, that's his hand. So he's posed like a trophy hunting. This is like a trophy hunting photo, but the trophy is a black man.
Yeah, so that's CPD for you. So we would later find out that a lot of so Burgess went away, right? Burge, he was convicted. His stuff was overturned. We thought that they came in and they shut down this kind of behavior because, number one, it makes the police department look bad. Number 2, it costs us a lot of money. And number 3, the convictions get overturned. So it's not even a good crime deterrent. It's just sloppy police work.
Sure.
And it's got no place in it. And forget about all the moral shit. It just doesn't work, right? So what did the police do? How did they handle this? Well, they opened a facility called Homan Square. Homan Square was a off-the-books interrogation warehouse where over 7,000 people disappeared, using air quotes. Attorneys described the place as something out of a James Bond movie.
Wow.
Police disappeared more than 7,000 people at the off the books interrogation warehouse in Chicago from August 24th to August 2004 to June 2015. Nearly 6,000 of those held at the facility were black, but only 68% of those that were held were allowed access to attorneys or public notice of their whereabouts, internal police record shows. So what they did was the police would bring you here. It wasn't a police station. It was an off the books interrogation facility. It was this warehouse in the middle of fucking nowhere in Chicago. And they would fucking lean on you, and they would make you dress up like a deer and take pictures with you, and they would fucking torture you. There was one story about one lawyer, David Gager, whose attorney whose client was taken home and square in 2011 after being arrested for marijuana.
Oh, God.
That place was scary. It's a scary place. There's nothing about it that resembles a police station. Not much shakes me in this business. Baby murder, sexual assault. I've done it and seen it all, but that place was scary. Okay. There was a narcotics, vice, and anti-gang units operating out of Homan Square in Chicago's West Side. But it took arrestees from all over the city. And yeah, it was just a place they would go to fucking beat on you and lean on you and interrogate you, and something out of the fuck. I hate to bring our great military into it, but it's something out of Guantanamo Bay or something.
Yeah.
And this is something that existed in the city. And granted, they thought it was okay because you were using it. A lot's been said, and I'm sure it's people that listen to our show, you guys are from all over the place, and I'm sure that you've heard things about Chicago, right? Which is where I live. So, we do have obviously a gang problem, and Chicago is one of the most segregated cities probably in the world. So it's really easy to live here and not be affected by the gang situation at all. Right? You live in this part of town, all this stuff, all these high, 17 people shot over a weekend. Yeah, but that happens over there. Doesn't happen over here, right? And as long as those kind of boundaries are maintained, things are probably going to keep on being like that, because you're going to have certain types of people living in one area of the city that's being protected, that's not crime ridden, right? That kind of polices its own borders, and that area has good schools and good businesses and everything's fine. And then you have the other part of the city that lives in poverty, that has enormous amounts of street crime and gang activity and people getting shot in the street and all that stuff. And nobody really cares as much. And when you see these type of facilities being justified and being used, it's like, okay, well, how are you going to combat crime in these areas that are so overrun? Like you have to fucking ratchet things up a notch, right? And I'm not saying that I agree with that type of thought process, but that is how you see a facility like this operating in a major American city, right? It's in response to the crime. Like, this is where we're at now, where we don't even take the people to police stations anymore. We are literally, parts of the city are literally a war zone. So we're going to act as such, right? But yeah, so that's
Wow.
that's it. I could go on about this place. I would say look it up if you're someone that's into police stuff, or if you're from Chicago and you're not familiar with this for whatever reason, which you should be. This wasn't as big of a story as the John Burge thing, because when they found out about this place, they shut it down. And the thing is, a lot of people didn't know that it even really existed, because it was a secret facility, and it was up on it was over on, actually it's like where I work now on the West Side. And it was mostly gang stuff.
So have none of these people been found? I don't understand.
No, so okay, when they disappeared, no. Not like they were like disappeared, like killed,
Oh,
it would be like, okay, I'm going to arrest you, right? You're on the street, or you get pulled over. Perfect example. You get pulled over, and instead of taking you to the police station, and they find drugs on you, as one probably would, right? They're not going to take you to the police station. They're going to take you here.
okay.
And some people, 22 people have told The Guardian, which is the reporting agency that I'm getting this information from, that Chicago police kept them at the Homan Square facility for hours and even days. They describe pressure from officers to become informants, and all but two, both white, have said that the police denied them phone calls to alert relatives or attorneys of their whereabouts. So that's what they mean when they say disappeared. Like, you're pulled out of a car or you're at a party and they throw, and you mouth off to the cops and they throw cuffs on you. What should happen is then they take you down to the police station for booking. You get charged, you get booked, and then you get put
Sure.
in lockup until you get bailed out or you see a judge. And that's not what happens. Those people disappear. They get thrown in the back of the squad car and then taken wherever. You get brought here, and then you're kept here for days upon days while they lean on you, try to get information out of you, try to get you to confess, try to get you to turn on and rat on other people, whatever.
That's still terrible.
Yeah, no, I agree. No. But I'm saying, like, they just like kill people. What else? Yeah, that's kind of it. I don't know. There's tons. This is a huge story. I mean, this. It could be a multi-part documentary series on Netflix.
Yeah.
So look into it. It's Homan Square in Chicago, and I even in all my car chases, I never wound up there. I think.
Not yet.
No.
They're gonna open it up just for you. Yeah, I don't, man. And well, I was trying to figure out like why, you know, why do the police do this, right? Why do they um why is it such a big deal? Wouldn't they rather have these cases solved the right way, right? Isn't that why they do these things? It's the same reason why you go to your job, not you, Pato, but anybody, go to your job and like don't do things exactly to the T.
Well, I think with and like the Chicago stuff that I brought out, and this isn't me just defending Chicago police. I think that they honestly feel like they're fighting a war, and that why they're trying to win, right? They're trying to win. They're trying to put the bad guys behind bars, and they're trying to, because in both of the cases that I talked about, John Burgess and the Homan Square facility, it was mostly targeting gang members. It wasn't, hey, we caught a murder case and we're going to implicate the wrong person, just so we can all go back to pulling over speeders next to Piggly Wiggly.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's more like these guys are bad dudes and we need to start locking fuckers up and getting them off the street. And I think that mentality, that's still a travesty of justice, don't get me wrong, but it's more of like we're trying to win a war but we're just doing it the wrong way, and we're going to end up becoming the very monsters that we're supposed to be protecting society from, right? Who watches The Watchmen, all that kind of shit. And I think when you talk about like the making a murderer thing, it's just like fucking shitty police work and them not wanting to have to pay a fucking lawsuit out. It's a little bit different. It feels like, or maybe I'm too close to it, to where I make the distinction. You know what I mean? But it isn't. But that's just the way I process it.
Well, I don't know why it is that way, but I do know that there are many people who have been wrongfully convicted, whether that be they confess because of they just did for no reason at all, whether it be because they were coerced into confessing. It is a wide variety of things, and it definitely shows some type of discrepancy within our legal, within our justice system, which needs to, something needs to happen.
I mean, that's why when people start saying defund the police, it's not that they're saying that we want a society without police officers at all. It's that, they're saying, are there other programs? Are there other things that we could do besides just giving these people more and more money to
Right.
do these kind of operations? Like, wait a minute, you had a whole entire fucking warehouse that nobody knew about? How are you buying that much empty real estate and keeping it off the books? Like, that's a ridiculous financial investment, like, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Like, what if they took that money and they built a fucking library somewhere or something? I don't know. You know what I mean? Or did something with it to improve the community instead of giving the fucking Chicago Police Department their own Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
But people say, like, defund the police. I don't think they mean, like, we don't want any cops anywhere. They're saying, like, don't give them the kind of money to do shit like this because
Yeah.
it's not helping. It's not. And honestly, I mean, I know you don't follow Chicago politics, but the guy that they just elected mayor, he is extremely progressive. He's like, something akin to Obama. And, a lot of people are looking at this guy saying, like, is he going to be the one to turn the city around? Is he going to be the next great savior? And there's a lot of people that are like, fuck it, I'm moving. This place is about to turn into a hellhole, And unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at right now, where it's either like put all our faith into a militarized police force to like stave off the fucking armies of the criminals, or is there any way that we can change this and like turn this thing around so that maybe crime isn't as rampant? I don't know.
Yeah. You guys do have a lot of crime, but you got a lot of people too.
Right. Not enough Batmans. That's what I've noticed.
Not enough Batman. Sounds very correct.
Right.
It is well, and but I feel like that's a conversation that's had in every city whenever anybody's elected, no matter what side it is, right? This side's going to move away, and this side thinks that it's going to be great now, and it never is ever, right? It's never really horrible, and it's also never really good either. Like,
you'd be surprised how much shit stays the same,
right? Exactly. Shit is still it's still shit. I don't know. I can't remember the last time just America in general had a big breakthrough in any type of change that was worth anything. So that, but
right.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just not old enough yet. Maybe I haven't gotten there. But that's pretty sad. But yeah, I mean, as far as, obviously we know that, again, our justice system has many, many problems. People, it starts with mental health. It really, really does, Pat, like you were saying. We don't want to defund the police because we don't want police. We want that money to go towards things that would prevent this stuff from happening. Obviously, setting laws is not preventing stuff from happening because, like, murder is illegal, and yet people still fucking kill people.
Right.
It's not stopping anyone. Not that we should just decriminalize everything, but the reason why people do shit like that, most of the time it starts at home. A lot of criminals, I mean, just in general, whether you're talking murder, whether you're talking theft, most of the time, I mean, look at the situations that they come from. They typically come from very, well, let's be honest, poor households. Right. But you do have it on both ends of the spectrum because you also have the kids that are too rich that will feel like they can't be touched. Right. Except they got the money to pay off the police and tell them look the other way. I'm sure crime happens just the same, but you have these two extremes. Neither of those people growing up in those situations are going to grow up and be 100% perfectly healthy and normal.
Well, yeah. Look how many of the serial killers that we've covered on this show alone, just the ones we've talked about, would have benefited from a special needs program.
Oh man.
You know what I mean? No, just think about that. Think about that for a second. It's the truth. Like almost every single one of them, if they had grown up in a more modern society, I guess you would say, right? Because some of them are, granted, it was 50 years ago, and some of them were in poor rural settings, right?
Sure.
But how many of them would have benefited and probably gone in a different direction had there been some kind of special needs program in their community?
Oh yeah, I agree.
Pretty much all of them. Or, and here's the other shoe to drop. Or if we had lived in a society that did not condemn homosexuality.
Oh yeah.
Because that's the other part is if they weren't mentally deficient in some way, if they weren't special needs, then the other thing that you see a lot of is they were gay or they were trans, and they were marginalized and misunderstood and abused by their family because they weren't, all American little fucking football player kids.
Yeah. Well, that's just because those are the people we tend to talk about, I think. I
Right.
don't know what the numbers are on it, but no, I agree. I mean, look at the types of trends that we have here. And how many of them are coming from money? How many of them are coming from rich homes? Fucking hardly any of them. You
I mean,
know,
just when you say rich kids, I immediately thought of the Menendez brothers, but who knows? I mean, you know what? I would love to do that case too. Are you familiar with that?
a little bit. I know that their claim was that they were being abused.
Yeah, but they were like really graphic and when they did their testimony, and people think that that was because they were trying to they
Convince
were
the jury.
yeah, they were kind of against the jury, so they were being real gross about shit. The only detail I remember, and of course this is Dr. X here, but the only thing that I remember them saying was that when they used to bring his dad his coffee, they would sprinkle in just a little bit of cinnamon because they thought it might make his cum taste better
Wow.
for when he would make them blow them at night or some shit like that. That they would put
That's,
cinnamon in his food just to try to just to hopefully make his load more palatable.
that's
Which
pretty,
is like
that's pretty
fucking
graphic.
like, it's pretty insane, right? So you hear that, you're like, what? Like, oh my god. And I guess their testimony was sprinkled with that kind of those kind of lurid details that made it like this super sensationalized case. But once again, that was probably early 90s. Like I was maybe just north of 10 years old. So I was like aware of the news, but not super following it, and it wasn't like it is today where we have like, Nancy Grace and all the people that follow everything. There was no internet. So it was kind of just like whatever was on a current affair or Inside Edition.
Yeah, that was a big case. That was pretty popular. I don't know. I'm just saying, mental health is definitely a big part of it. It just sucks to even survive anymore, and
Sure.
people fucking crack under that pressure, whether it be murder or, petty theft or, I mean, God, look at that. I mean, it's the fucking highest crime out there is people stealing shit. Well, when you can't afford nothing, it's, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? So I don't know. It's just, I don't know how we started talking about this.
I don't know.
I agree that funds should be placed more into mental health, and we should definitely take that into consideration when people are being. I mean, okay, and also, prison anyway. It's not rehabilitation. That's what it should be, and we're not setting these people up for success once they get out. Like we're setting them up for complete fucking failure, and usually that's why people reoffend is because they. I mean, again, you know what? Shit's not working out now, and so you might as well just continue to do what you were doing because survival. It's really shitty, but I think everybody that listens to the show knows that. I wish I had more insight into the people that commit these types of, false confessions, but I don't. I don't understand it. Hopefully, I never have to be in a position where I might have to. So
Yeah, me too.
that's what I think about that. So, but that being said, guys, we'll see you back here next Wednesday.